The champagne flute slipped from my fingers, shattering against the marble floor of our Central Park West apartment. Through my blurring vision, I watched Roger's hand hover over his laptop screen, his finger clicking the button labeled Transfer All. Numbers cascaded across the display. My inheritance, my mother's life savings, everything she'd worked for as a nurse in Queens for 40 years, vanishing into an account I'd never seen before. The room tilted. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance, or maybe that sound was just inside my skull. I tried to speak, but my tongue felt thick, useless. Roger glanced up, his expression flickering between surprise and something darker before his face smoothed into concern. That's when I knew. The tea. Always the tea. My legs buckled, and the last thing I heard before the floor rushed up to meet me was his voice, calm and almost bored. "You really do sleep too much, Elaine." 3 months earlier, I'd believed I was living proof that fairy tales existed past 40. Our apartment overlooked Central Park, 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the sunrise over the reservoir. 20 years of marriage to Roger had built this life, his success as a financial consultant, my thriving interior design firm. No children by choice, but plenty of love to go around, or so I thought. We had dinner parties where his colleagues praised his market instincts. We had lazy Sunday mornings reading the Times with French press coffee. We had a king-size bed with Egyptian cotton sheets where we'd make love on Saturday nights with the kind of comfortable passion that comes from knowing someone's body as well as your own. I was 45, successful, and stupid. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday morning in April. I was rushing to meet a client in Soho, grabbing my purse from the kitchen counter when a receipt fluttered out. CVS Pharmacy, dated 3 days prior, for a prescription I didn't recognize. The medication name meant nothing to me. Ambien CR, 30 tablets, insurance paid. I stood there in my Armani blazer, holding this slip of paper like it was written in a foreign language. We used the same pharmacy, shared the same insurance. Maybe Roger had picked up something for himself and the receipt ended up in my purse by mistake. I told myself this. I believed it. I wanted to believe it. That evening, I casually mentioned it over dinner, pan-seared salmon with asparagus, a Sancerre breathing on the table. "Hey, I found a pharmacy receipt in my purse. Did you pick up a prescription recently?" Roger didn't even look up from his plate. "Oh, that. Yeah, I got you some sleep aids. You've been tossing and turning lately, keeping me up. Figured they might help." Something in his tone made my fork pause midway to my mouth. "I didn't ask for sleep aids." "You didn't need to ask." He smiled, that warm smile that had won me over at a gallery opening 2 decades ago. "That's what husbands do, Elaine. We take care of things. You've been working so hard on the Tribeca Loft project, burning the candle at both ends. I thought you could use the rest." He reached across the table, covered my hand with his. His palm was warm, familiar. "You sleep too much anyway. Might as well make it quality sleep." I laughed. Actually laughed. "That doesn't make sense, Roger. Doesn't it?" He squeezed my fingers. "When's the last time you woke up feeling truly rested?" I thought about it. He was right. I'd been exhausted lately, dragging through my days, fighting to keep my eyes open during client presentations. Just last week, I dozed off at my desk and woken with my face pressed against fabric samples, an hour gone that I couldn't account for. "See?" Roger's thumb traced circles on my wrist. "Trust me, I'm looking out for you. I know you're sitting there, probably yelling at your phone or computer screen, telling me to run. But love isn't blind. Love is drugged, manipulated, gaslit until you can't tell which way is up. And I loved Roger. God help me, I loved him with every naive, trusting cell in my body. 2 weeks later, I found the bottle. I was looking for Roger's cufflinks. He'd asked me to grab them from his nightstand before he left for a conference in Boston. The drawer stuck slightly, and when I yanked it open, a prescription bottle rolled forward, hitting the wooden front with a hollow thunk. I picked it up, read the label, Ambien CR, prescribed to Elaine Morrison, 30 tablets, 27 remaining. My hands went cold. I'd never taken a single one, never opened this bottle, didn't even know it existed until this moment. Yet 3 pills were missing. The prescription date matched the receipt I'd found 3 weeks ago. I stood in our bedroom, this space we'd decorated together with its cream-colored walls and the abstract painting we'd bought in the meatpacking district, and felt the floor shift beneath my feet. Maybe I had taken them. Maybe Roger had given them to me, and I'd been so tired, so overwhelmed with work, that I'd forgotten. Maybe this bone-deep exhaustion was making me paranoid, forgetful. That's what he'd say if I asked. That's what he'd proven already. I was the one who couldn't remember, who slept through alarms, who lost track of time. I was going crazy. That had to be it. But I photographed the bottle anyway, slipped my phone from my pocket, captured the label, the quantity remaining, the date. I didn't know why. Just that some small, stubborn part of my brain that had built a successful business from nothing refused to accept the easy explanation. That night, Roger came home with Thai takeout and a bouquet of peonies, my favorite. We ate pad Thai on the couch, watching some Netflix crime drama, his arm around my shoulders. He smelled like his cologne, that woody scent I'd given him every Christmas. When he kissed the top of my head, I felt safe. "I love you," he murmured into my hair. "Love you too," I whispered back, and meant it. Even as that photograph burned in my phone like evidence of something I couldn't name. Even as I watched him prepare my nightly tea, chamomile with honey, our routine for 15 years, and noticed how carefully he turned away from me as he stirred. "Here you go, sweetheart." He handed me the mug, steam rising between us. "Drink up. You've got that big presentation tomorrow with the penthouse client. You'll need your rest." I took the tea. Our fingers touched on the ceramic. I smiled at him, this man who was my whole world, and brought the cup to my lips. But I didn't drink, not yet, because that small, stubborn part of my brain was screaming now, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for months, maybe longer. The exhaustion, the lost time, the way Roger always insisted I was imagining things, working too hard, being dramatic. You've been there, haven't you? That moment when you realize your sanity is the battlefield and the person you trust most is the enemy. When gaslighting stops being a trendy term and becomes your daily reality. I excused myself to the bathroom, dumped the tea in the sink, rinsed the cup, and came back to bed. Roger was already under the covers, scrolling through his phone. I climbed in beside him, kissed his shoulder, and waited. Within 20 minutes, he was snoring. I lay there in the dark, my heart hammering, watching the city lights paint shadows across our ceiling. Then I got up, went to the kitchen, and did something I never thought I'd do. I opened Roger's laptop. His password was our wedding anniversary, June 14th, 2005. I'd always thought that was romantic. Now it felt like a sick joke. The screen illuminated, showing his desktop meticulously organized folders of client files and personal documents. My fingers hesitated over the trackpad. This was it. The line between wife and detective, trust and suspicion. Once I crossed it, there was no going back. I clicked on his browser history. The metallic taste of shock filled my mouth as I scrolled. Online pharmacies, forums about sedatives, articles about how to access someone's bank accounts. And then, my breath caught, a search from 2 months ago. How long does Ambien stay in system undetected? The bedroom suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Our home, this beautiful space we'd built together with its carefully curated art and designer furniture, became a trap. I could hear Roger breathing in the next room, that familiar sound that had lulled me to sleep for 20 years, and it terrified me. I kept digging. Financial websites, our joint bank account. He checked it obsessively, multiple times daily. And then I found it. A transfer scheduled for tomorrow. $50,000 from our savings to an account number I didn't recognize. My inheritance money. The funds my mother had left me 6 months ago after her death. Money I'd been too grief-stricken to think much about. Money Roger had helped me deposit with such gentle concern for my emotional state. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my personal email, cleared the browser history, shut the laptop, walked back to bed on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Roger didn't stir as I slid under the covers. I lay there until dawn, watching him sleep, this stranger wearing my husband's face. And I thought about my mother, who'd worked double shifts at Lenox Hill Hospital for 40 years, who'd saved every penny so I could have something after she was gone. How proud she'd been when I started my design firm. How she'd loved Roger, called him the son she never had. She'd trusted him, too. The next morning, I called my best friend Cynthia from my office. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and familiar. "Hey, lady, what's up?" "Sin." My voice cracked. "I need help. I think Roger is drugging me." The words hung in the air of my design studio, surrounded by fabric swatches and mood boards for other people's dream homes. My own dream had become a nightmare, and I was just starting to wake up. "I'm coming over," Cynthia said immediately. "Don't drink anything he gives you. Don't eat anything he prepares. Elaine, I'm serious. Not a damn thing." She arrived an hour later with coffee from the place we'd gone to since our 20s, back when we were broke and ambitious and thought we could conquer Manhattan with nothing but talent and audacity. We'd succeeded, or I thought we had. Turned out I'd just built a prettier cage. Cynthia burst through my office door like a force of nature, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing her trademark leather jacket over a vintage band tee. She looked exactly like the woman who'd been my roommate in our cramped East Village apartment 23 years ago, before either of us had money or stability or husbands who turned out to be monsters. "Show me," she said, setting down 2 cappuccinos and locking the door behind her. I showed her everything. The photos, the screenshots, the browser history. Cynthia's face went pale, then red, then settled into a cold fury I'd never seen before. "That son of a bitch," she whispered. "That calculating son of a bitch. Elaine, you need to leave. Tonight. Now." "I can't just leave. We've been married 20 years. Maybe there's an explanation." "Stop." Cynthia grabbed my shoulders, forced me to look at her. Her green eyes were blazing. "Listen to yourself. He's been poisoning you, stealing from you, making you doubt your own mind. There is no explanation that makes this okay." "But what if I'm wrong?" The words tumbled out, pathetic and desperate. "What if there's some reasonable explanation and I'm just being paranoid? What if my exhaustion is making me see things that aren't there?" Cynthia's grip on my shoulders tightened. "Do you hear yourself? This is exactly what he wants, for you to doubt your own perceptions, your own sanity. Elaine, I've known you since you were 22 years old. You're the most level-headed, rational person I know. You built a 6-figure business from scratch. You don't imagine things, you don't get paranoid, and you sure as hell don't deserve to be gaslit by a man who promised to love you." Tears spilled down my cheeks. I hadn't realized I was crying until I tasted salt on my lips. "I'm scared, Sin. What if I leave and I'm wrong? What if I destroy everything we built over nothing? And what if you stay and he kills you?" Cynthia's voice was sharp, cutting through my fog of denial. "Because that's where this is heading, Elaine. Maybe not intentionally, but one of these nights he's going to miscalculate the dosage. One of these nights you're not going to wake up." The words hit me like ice water. I'd been so focused on the theft, on the violation of trust, that I hadn't fully processed the physical danger. Roger was putting unknown substances into my body night after night. He was controlling when I slept, how deeply I slept, whether I could remember what happened. That was assault. That was attempted murder, whether he intended it that way or not. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing and accepting are different countries, separated by an ocean of denial. "I need proof," I heard myself say. "Real proof. Something undeniable." Cynthia studied me for a long moment, her expression softening slightly. "Okay, Okay, if that's what you need to feel safe leaving, then we'll get you proof. But Elaine, promise me, you won't drink or eat anything he gives you from this moment on. Nothing. I don't care if it looks suspicious. Your life is more important than his feelings. I promise. Say it again. Say, I promise I won't consume anything Roger prepares for me. I promise I won't consume anything Roger prepares for me. The formal declaration felt like an oath, binding and real. Good. Cynthia pulled out her phone. My cousin went through a nasty divorce last year. Her lawyer recommended a private investigator who specializes in this kind of thing: domestic surveillance, financial fraud, gathering evidence. His name is Marcus Chen. I'm calling him right now. Have you ever felt your own voice coming from far away? Like you're watching yourself make decisions from outside your body? That's where I was, trapped between the woman who'd loved Roger for 20 years and the woman who was starting to realize she'd never really known him at all. Cynthia made calls. Within 2 hours, I had an appointment with Marcus Chen, recommended by her divorce lawyer cousin. We met at a coffee shop in the West Village, surrounded by NYU students and freelancers, normal people living normal lives where their husbands didn't drug them. Marcus was 50-something, silver-haired, with kind eyes that had clearly seen too much. He wore a gray suit that looked expensive but understated, and when he shook my hand, his grip was firm and reassuring. He listened to my story without interrupting, took notes in a leather journal, and didn't look at me like I was crazy. That alone was worth whatever he'd charge. "I've seen this before," he said finally, his voice calm and professional. "Not often, but enough to know the pattern. He's likely been doing this longer than you realize. The exhaustion you've been experiencing, when did it start?" I thought back, trying to pin down when my energy had started draining away. Maybe 8 months ago, around the time my mother got her terminal diagnosis. "And your inheritance. When did you receive it?" 6 months ago, right after she passed. The grief still felt fresh, a wound that hadn't begun to heal. Losing my mother had been devastating. Learning that Roger had used my grief as cover for his crimes made it worse. Marcus nodded grimly, making notes. "He knew it was coming. Started drugging you gradually, so you'd attribute the exhaustion to grief, to stress. By the time the money came through, you were already conditioned not to trust your own perceptions. Classic financial abuse combined with physical control. The clinical terms made it real in a way that photographs and screenshots hadn't. This wasn't a marital misunderstanding. This was a crime against me. By the man who'd promised to love and cherish me until death did us part. I've documented cases like this before," Marcus continued, flipping through his journal. "Usually it's slower, more subtle. The fact that he accelerated after your mother's death suggests he's gotten more confident, more reckless. That works in our favor. Reckless people make mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" I leaned forward, desperate for any advantage. "They get sloppy with their digital footprint. They stop being as careful about covering their tracks. They assume their victim is too incapacitated to notice." He looked up from his notes, met my eyes directly. "But you noticed, Mrs. Morrison. That took courage. A lot of victims never do. Turned out death wasn't necessary. Ambien worked just fine." "What do you need from me?" I asked, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Access to your home when he's not there. I'll install cameras, the kind you can't see unless you know where to look. We'll monitor for 2 weeks, get everything documented. Meanwhile, you pretend nothing's wrong. Can you do that?" Could I? Could I smile at Roger across the dinner table, accept his false concern, drink the tea he prepared knowing he'd poisoned it? Could I lie next to him in bed, feel his arm around my waist, and not scream? "Yes," I said. "I can do that. Because here's what I learned in that coffee shop, surrounded by the white noise of other people's ordinary problems. Rage is a better motivator than fear. And I was so angry. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold kind, the calculating kind, the kind that plans, the kind that waits. Marcus leaned back, studying me with those perceptive eyes. Mrs. Morrison, I need to be direct with you about something. What we're about to do, gathering this evidence, building a case, it's going to be emotionally brutal. You're going to have to watch footage of your husband drugging you. You're going to have to see, in explicit detail, how he's been violating your trust. Some of my clients can't handle that. They break down, they confront their abuser prematurely. They sabotage the investigation because the psychological toll is too high. Are you prepared for that? I thought about my mother, about how she'd worked doubles and triples, sacrificing her health and her time, so I could have opportunities she'd never had. About how proud she'd been at my college graduation, my wedding, the opening of my first design studio. About the envelope she'd left me with her will, containing a handwritten note. My darling Elaine, use this to build the life you deserve. You've always been stronger than you know. Love, Mom. I'm prepared, I said quietly, whatever it takes. Marcus installed the cameras the next afternoon while Roger was at a client meeting in Midtown. Tiny things, embedded in smoke detectors and behind picture frames. One in the bedroom, focused on the nightstand where Roger prepared my tea. One in his office, aimed at his desk. One in the kitchen. The bedroom camera is most important, Marcus explained, adjusting the angle on the smoke detector above our bed. If he's drugging you, that's where he'll do it. The others are backup. Maybe we'll catch financial transactions, phone calls, something useful. I watched him work, this stranger moving efficiently through my home, installing surveillance equipment like it was the most normal thing in the world. Maybe in his line of work it was. Maybe he'd seen dozens of apartments like mine, dozens of women like me, all discovering that the man they'd loved was a monster wearing a human mask. One more thing, Marcus said, testing the camera feeds on a tablet. Don't look at the cameras. Don't let your eyes linger on the smoke detector or the picture frames. Act natural. If Roger suspects surveillance, he'll change his behavior and we'll get nothing useful. How long will this take? 2 weeks, ideally. Maybe less, if he's as consistent as I suspect. We need multiple instances on camera. A pattern, not just one incident he can claim was a misunderstanding or a mistake. After he left, I walked through my apartment looking at these invisible witnesses. My home had become a stage. My marriage a performance. I was the actress who knew the truth while everyone else believed the script. That night, Roger came home with sushi and more flowers. Lilies this time, their heavy scent filling our entryway. How was your day, sweetheart? He kissed my cheek, his lips warm and familiar. Good. Exhausting. The Tribeca project is killing me. You work too hard. He set down the takeout bags, pulled me into his arms. Promise me you'll take your medication tonight. Get some real rest. My medication. As if the Ambien was prescribed by a doctor, as if I had any say in whether I took it. I promise, I lied and felt nothing. We ate dinner, watched television, had the same conversation we'd had 1,000 times about his work, my clients, weekend plans. He was attentive, affectionate, the perfect husband. And all I could think about was the camera recording us, capturing this performance of normalcy while underneath, everything was rot. When he prepared my tea, I watched his back carefully, the slight shift of his shoulders as he reached into his pocket, the pause, barely perceptible, as he stirred. Then he turned with that warm smile, the one that used to make me feel safe. Here you go, love. I took the mug. Thank you. Our nightly ritual, poisoned. I brought it to the bathroom, poured it out, refilled the cup with hot water from the tap, added honey for color. When I returned to bed, Roger was already scrolling through his phone. All set? He asked absently. All set. I climbed in beside him, this stranger I'd shared a bed with for 2 decades, and waited for him to sleep. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in acting. I smiled when I wanted to scream. I accepted his affection when I wanted to recoil. I pretended to be the exhausted, confused wife he'd carefully constructed while my mind stayed sharp and clear, watching, documenting, waiting. Every morning, I'd wake up next to Roger and have to remind myself not to flinch when he touched me. I'd force myself to kiss him goodbye, to say I love you with the same inflection I'd used for 20 years. I'd watch him leave for work, then immediately check my phone for messages from Marcus, monitoring the surveillance feeds remotely. The psychological strain was unlike anything I'd experienced. I'd have panic attacks in my office bathroom, hyperventilating into paper towels so my assistants wouldn't hear. I'd lose my appetite completely, forcing down protein bars because Cynthia insisted I needed to keep my strength up. At night, I'd lie awake for hours after Roger fell asleep, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. What if he discovered the cameras? What if he escalated the drugging? What if he transferred the rest of my money before I could stop him? Cynthia checked in daily, sometimes multiple times. "How are you holding up?" she'd ask during our morning coffee runs. "I'm okay," I'd lie. Then, more honestly, "I'm furious and scared, and I want this to be over." "Soon," she'd promise. "Marcus said he's getting good footage, just a little longer." But each day felt like a year. Each interaction with Roger felt like walking through a minefield. I had to remember every detail of our conversations, maintain consistency in my behavior, give him no reason to suspect that anything had changed. It was exhausting in a way that had nothing to do with his pills and everything to do with the constant vigilance required to survive living with someone who was actively destroying you. The hardest part was maintaining intimacy. Roger expected sex, expected affection, expected me to be the loving wife I'd always been. And I gave it to him, mechanically, my body going through motions while my mind screamed. I'd shower afterward, scrubbing my skin raw, trying to wash away the feeling of his hands on me. One night, about a week into the surveillance, I almost broke. Roger had made my tea as usual. I'd taken it to the bathroom as usual. But when I poured it out, my hands started shaking so violently that I dropped the mug. It shattered in the sink, porcelain shards scattering across the white ceramic. "Everything okay in there?" Roger called from the bedroom. I stared at the broken mug, at my trembling hands, at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me had dark circles under her eyes, hollow cheeks, a haunted expression that no amount of concealer could hide. I was breaking. The strain of pretending, of living in constant fear, of sleeping next to a man who was slowly poisoning me. It was too much. "Fine," I called back, my voice too high, too bright. "Just drop my cup, clumsy me." I cleaned up the shards with shaking hands, filled a new mug with tap water and honey, and returned to bed. Roger was already asleep, or pretending to be. I lay there in the dark, counting my breaths, talking myself down from a panic attack. 2 more weeks. I could survive 2 more weeks. I had to. The next morning, I called Cynthia from my car before going into the office. "I almost lost it last night," I told her, my voice raw. "I don't know how much longer I can do this. Do you need to move up the timeline? Marcus said he already has some good footage." No, I need it to be ironclad. I need so much evidence that Roger can't talk his way out of it, can't claim it was a misunderstanding or a mistake. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. I need him destroyed, Sin, not just caught. Destroyed. There was a pause, then quietly. "Okay, I'm here. Whatever you need. But Elaine, don't lose yourself in this. Don't let the rage consume you. That's not who you are." But maybe it was. Maybe this cold, calculating woman was who I'd always been underneath the nice wife persona. Maybe Roger had done me a favor by showing me exactly how ruthless I could be when someone I loved betrayed me. 2 weeks later, Marcus called me to his office in Chelsea. The evidence was worse than I'd imagined. His office was small, but professional, with diplomas on the wall and filing cabinets that probably contained the secrets of dozens of failed marriages. He sat me down in front of a large monitor and pulled up file after file of surveillance footage. Night after night, the bedroom camera had captured Roger crushing pills into my tea. Not just Ambien. He'd graduated to something stronger, Marcus explained, probably obtained from one of those online pharmacies. The footage showed him checking my pulse while I slept, making sure I was deeply under before leaving the bedroom. I watched myself on screen, unconscious in our bed, completely vulnerable. Watched Roger lean over me, press 2 fingers to my neck, nod with satisfaction when he found my heartbeat slow and steady. Watched him pull the covers up around my shoulders with something that looked almost like tenderness before walking out. "That's called checking his work," Marcus said grimly. "He's making sure the dosage is effective without being lethal. He's done this before, Mrs. Morrison. This level of precision doesn't come from experimentation." My stomach churned. I'd thought I was prepared for this, but seeing visual proof of how helpless I'd been, how completely he'd controlled me, was devastating. Where did he go? To his office? To his laptop? The camera there had recorded him accessing our accounts, transferring funds, covering his tracks. In 2 weeks, he'd stolen another $30,000. My mother's money, funneled into an account under his name alone, hidden from me with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. "He's been stealing from you for at least a year," Marcus said, pulling up bank records he'd somehow accessed. "Small amounts at first, then larger as you became more incapacitated. He's got nearly $200,000 stashed away now. $200,000, my inheritance, my security, my mother's legacy. There's more." Marcus pulled up another file. "I did some background checking. Roger's first wife. Did you know he was married before?" I went cold. "No, he said I was his first." "Her name was Patricia. They divorced 15 years ago, right before he met you. She filed a restraining order claiming he'd drained her inheritance through coercion and manipulation. No criminal charges. She was too scared, and he had good lawyers. But there's a pattern here, Elaine. You're not his first victim." The office walls seemed to close in. Everything I'd believed about my marriage, my husband, the life we'd built, all of it was a lie. Not just a lie. A repeat performance. I was the second act of Roger's carefully crafted con. I thought about our wedding day, how Roger had cried when I walked down the aisle, how he'd whispered, "I can't believe you're mine," during our first dance, how he'd carried me over the threshold of our apartment, laughing, kissing me in the doorway. Had any of it been real? Or was I just the next Mark? The next woman with money and trust to exploit? "Patricia," I said slowly, "can I talk to her?" Marcus hesitated. "I reached out to her during my investigation. She's been through a lot, Mrs. Morrison. Roger did a number on her. She's rebuilt her life, remarried, moved on. I'm not sure she'd want to revisit that trauma." "Ask her anyway, please. I need to know I'm not crazy. I need to hear from someone else who survived him." Marcus nodded slowly. "I'll reach out. No promises. But Elaine." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "You're not crazy. What he did to you, what he's still doing to you, it's criminal. You have enough evidence here to put him away and reclaim every penny he stole. You've already won." But I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt hollowed out, gutted, like someone had scooped out everything that made me who I was and left only rage and grief behind. "What do I do?" My voice sounded small, broken. I hated it. "You have options. Criminal charges for drugging and theft, civil suit for the money, but honestly..." Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. "The criminal case is tough. Good lawyers can muddy the water, claim the medication was consensual, that you knew about the account. Your best bet is to secure your remaining assets immediately, then confront him in a way that protects you legally." "I want him destroyed," I said quietly. Not just caught, destroyed. Marcus looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then we'll need a different kind of plan. I met with a lawyer that afternoon. Gloria Chen, Marcus's sister, specialized in high-asset divorces with a side of criminal complications. Her office in the financial district had a view of the Brooklyn Bridge, and I sat there watching tourists take selfies while she explained how to dismantle my husband's life. Gloria looked like Marcus, same silver-streaked black hair, same perceptive eyes. But where he was calm and methodical, she radiated controlled aggression. This was a woman who destroyed men like Roger for a living, and she was very good at it. First, we move your remaining assets to a protected account. Today, everything that's still accessible, savings, investments, business accounts. We'll file for divorce simultaneously with a restraining order based on the drugging evidence. But if you want maximum impact, if you want this to hurt beyond the legal system, you need witnesses. What kind of witnesses? Gloria smiled, and it wasn't kind. The kind that mattered to a man like Roger, his colleagues, his friends, his professional reputation. Men like him don't fear jail time as much as they fear social consequences. Humiliation works better than handcuffs. An idea was forming, cold and perfect. Our 20-year anniversary is in 2 weeks. We'd planned a party at the River Cafe. Everyone who matters to Roger will be there, his partners, his clients, our friends. Cancel it, Gloria advised. Don't give him any advantages. No. I felt something sharp and clear crystallizing in my chest. We have the party, but we changed the script. Gloria studied me, one eyebrow raised. What did you have in mind? I told her. As I spoke, watching her eyebrows rise, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not fear, not exhaustion, not the helpless fog that Roger had wrapped around my brain with his pills and lies. Power. I was taking it back. That's bold, Gloria said when I finished. Risky. If anything goes wrong, if he gets wind of it beforehand, he won't. Roger thinks he's won. He thinks I'm too drugged, too confused, too devoted to ever question him. His arrogance is his weakness. And you're sure you want to do it this way? Publicly? In front of everyone he knows? I thought about my mother, about Patricia, about every woman Roger had hurt or would hurt if I didn't stop him. About the woman I'd been before I met him, confident, successful, trusting, and how he'd methodically destroyed her. I'm sure. Gloria nodded, making notes. Then let's talk logistics. We'll need the venue's cooperation, audio-visual equipment, security to escort him out when it's done. I'll coordinate with Marcus on timing, make sure all legal documents are ready to serve immediately after the confrontation. You'll need to continue the performance at home, act normal, excited about the party, give him no reason to suspect. I can do that. One more thing. Gloria's expression softened slightly. After this is over, after Roger is dealt with, you're going to need support. Therapy, probably. A strong network of friends. This kind of betrayal, it leaves scars. Don't try to handle it alone. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Because she was right. I could feel those scars forming already, changing me into someone I didn't fully recognize. Someone harder. Someone less trusting. Someone who understood that love could be weaponized, that intimacy could be used as cover for cruelty. But I'd deal with that later. Right now, I had a performance to give. The next 2 weeks were the hardest acting job of my life. I smiled at Roger, thanked him for my nightly tea, pretended to drink it. I discussed anniversary party details, the menu, the guest list, the flowers. He was attentive, loving, excited about celebrating our marriage. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me with this satisfied expression, like I was a particularly successful investment. That's all I'd ever been to him. An investment. A mark. A woman foolish enough to love him while he robbed her blind. The psychological toll was enormous. I'd wake at 3 in the morning, panic clawing at my throat, convinced he'd discovered my investigation. Every kind word from him felt like a knife. Every touch made my skin crawl. But I maintained the mask, because rage is patient when it knows justice is coming. Cynthia kept me sane. She'd come to my office between client meetings, bringing real food, making sure I ate. 2 more weeks, she'd say. You can do 2 more weeks. What if he figures it out? I asked one afternoon, watching rain streak down my studio windows. What if he realizes I'm not actually taking the pills? Then we move up the timeline. But Elaine, you've been perfect, Oscar-worthy. He has no idea. She was right. Roger suspected nothing. Why would he? I'd been the perfect wife for 20 years, trusting, devoted, easy to control. He had no reason to believe that had changed. 3 days before the party, Patricia called me. I was in my office, reviewing fabric samples for a client, when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Elaine Morrison? A woman's voice, warm but cautious. Yes. This is Patricia. Patricia Morgan. I was married to Roger before you. Marcus Chen gave me your number. I hope that's okay. My breath caught. Of course. Thank you for calling. I know this must be difficult. Difficult doesn't begin to cover it. A pause. Marcus told me what Roger did to you. The drugging, the theft. I wanted to tell you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't press charges when I had the chance. Maybe if I had, you wouldn't have had to go through this. You have nothing to apologize for, I said firmly. He's the monster, not you, not us. Still, I knew what he was, and I let him walk away. I was too afraid, too ashamed, too convinced that no one would believe me. Her voice cracked slightly. I let my fear protect him instead of protecting his next victim. Patricia, you survived. That's what matters. And now you're helping me make sure he doesn't do this to anyone else. We talked for an hour. She told me about her marriage to Roger, how he'd pursued her relentlessly, swept her off her feet, seemed like the perfect man. How he'd isolated her from friends and family under the guise of wanting quality time together. How her inheritance from her grandmother had mysteriously dwindled, always with reasonable explanations about investments and opportunities. How she'd started having blackouts, losing time, feeling exhausted all the time. It was my story, 15 years earlier, down to the smallest details. The worst part, Patricia said quietly, was thinking I was going crazy. He was so convincing, so concerned, always telling me I was stressed, overworked, imagining things. By the time I realized what he was doing, I didn't trust my own perceptions anymore. How did you get out? My sister. She came to visit and saw how bad things had gotten. She practically dragged me to a lawyer, helped me document everything, got me out. I filed for divorce and a restraining order the same day. Roger was furious. I'd never seen him angry before. He'd always been so controlled, so charming. But when he realized he was losing access to my money, the mask came off. I gripped my phone tighter. Did he threaten you? He tried. Showed up at my sister's house, demanded to see me, said he'd destroy my reputation if I didn't drop the restraining order. But my sister had connections. She got security, documented everything, made it clear that if he came near me again, she'd make his life hell. Eventually he gave up and moved on. To you, I guess. The casual cruelty of it, how Roger had simply found a new target when Patricia became too difficult, made my stomach turn. I'm testifying at your hearing, Patricia continued. Marcus said you're building a case. I want to help. I need to help. If my testimony can put him away, or at least stop him from doing this to someone else, then maybe the last 15 years of guilt won't have been for nothing. You'd really do that? Revisit all of this? For you? For the next woman he might target? Absolutely. We have to stop him, Elaine, whatever it takes. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at nothing. Patricia's courage, her willingness to face her trauma again to help me, was humbling. I wasn't alone in this. I'd never been alone. Roger had counted on that, on each of us being too isolated, too ashamed, too afraid to reach out. He'd miscalculated. I met with Gloria every few days, refining our plan. She'd assembled a legal team, prepared divorce papers with criminal allegations attached, coordinated with Marcus to ensure all evidence was court-ready. Everything was aligned, waiting for the trigger. The night before the anniversary party, Roger was especially attentive. We'd just had sex. My skin still crawled thinking about it. But I'd forced myself through it, maintaining the illusion. He held me afterward, stroking my hair, whispering about how lucky he was. 20 years, he murmured. Best decision I ever made, marrying you. I pressed my face against his chest so he wouldn't see my expression. Best decision I ever made, too. Lies. We were both lying, but only one of us knew it. I can't wait for tomorrow, Roger continued, celebrating with everyone who matters to us, showing them what a real marriage looks like. His words struck me with their irony. A real marriage. What would that even look like? Not this performance we'd been doing for 2 decades. Not the carefully constructed facade where he played the devoted husband while systematically destroying me from within. Tomorrow, everyone would see what our marriage really looked like. Not the polished exterior, but the rot underneath. I thought about all the anniversary parties we'd attended over the years, toasting other couples' milestones, wondering what secrets they were hiding behind their smiles. How many of those marriages were real? How many were just prettier versions of what Roger and I had? One person slowly consuming the other while maintaining the appearance of love. It'll be perfect, I agreed, and thought about the video I'd prepared, the speech I'd practiced, the moment when his world would crumble. I thought about my mother, about how she'd be proud of me tomorrow. Not for staying, not for enduring, but for fighting back. For refusing to be another woman who disappeared quietly into Roger's con. She'd raised me to be strong, to stand up for myself, to never let anyone make me feel small. I'd forgotten that for 20 years. Tomorrow I'd remember. He gave me my drugged tea. I pretended to drink it. He waited for me to sleep, then slipped out to his office, probably to admire his stolen wealth one more time before the party. I lay there in the dark, counting down the hours. Tomorrow, Roger would learn what a real marriage looked like. What happened when you underestimated your wife. When you mistook kindness for weakness. Trust for stupidity. Tomorrow, the performance would end, and the man who'd drugged me, stolen from me, made me doubt my own sanity, would face an audience he couldn't manipulate. I smiled in the darkness, and for the first time in months, I fell asleep without fear. Revenge, I discovered, was the best sleeping pill of all. The River Cafe sits beneath the Brooklyn Bridge, glass walls overlooking the East River with Manhattan's skyline glittering across the water. It's one of the most romantic restaurants in New York City, the kind of place where men propose and anniversaries are celebrated. Roger had chosen it for precisely that reason, the optics of our perfect marriage framed against an iconic view. I wore red, a dress I'd bought specifically for this evening, crimson silk that hugged my body, elegant and powerful. Roger had raised his eyebrows when I'd emerged from the bedroom, surprised by the choice. "That's bold," he'd said carefully. "I thought you were wearing the cream Armani." "Changed my mind. You don't like it?" No, you look beautiful. Just different." Different. That was the point. The old Elaine, the one he'd drugged and manipulated and stolen from, would have worn the safe cream dress, smiled blandly, played her role. The new Elaine wore red like war paint and came armed with evidence. The party was set for 7 o'clock. By 6:30, our guests were arriving. Roger's partners from the financial firm where he consulted, my design clients, our couple friends from the city and Connecticut. 50 people who thought they were celebrating a successful marriage. 50 witnesses to its destruction. Cynthia arrived early, as planned. She'd positioned herself near the bar, ready to signal Marcus, who was stationed outside with additional security I'd hired. Gloria sat at a table near the back, legal documents in her briefcase, looking like just another well-dressed guest. Roger worked the room with practiced charm, his arm around my waist, introducing me to colleagues I'd met a dozen times before. "My better half," he'd say, squeezing my hip. 20 years, and she still puts up with me. Everyone laughed. I smiled, and I thought about the flash drive in my clutch, loaded with footage that would end him. At 7:30, the maitre d' signaled that dinner was ready to be served. Our guests found their seats at elegantly appointed tables, napkins unfolding, wine being poured. The River Cafe had prepared a special anniversary menu, 3 courses, champagne, a cake that would be brought out at the end. There would be no cake. Roger stood to make a toast. He looked handsome in his tailored suit, silver threading his dark hair, smile warm and genuine. If I didn't know better, I'd believe he loved me. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, raising his glass. 20 years ago, I married the most incredible woman I've ever known. Elaine has been my rock, my inspiration, my partner in everything. She's made me a better man. "That's a low bar," I murmured, just loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Roger's smile tightened. "As I was saying, Elaine is the love of my life. Here's to 20 more years and all the adventures ahead." "Here, here," the guests chorused, glasses raising. I didn't drink. I stood instead, my red dress catching the light from the chandeliers above. "My turn," I said sweetly. "I'd like to say a few words, too." Roger looked surprised, but gestured magnanimously. "Of course, sweetheart. The floor is yours." I walked to the front of the room, where the restaurant had set up a small podium for toasts. A projection screen had been installed at my request. Roger thought it was for a slideshow of our marriage, photos from 2 decades together. He'd even helped me pick them out last week, laughing over images of us in Italy, at friends' weddings, on vacation in the Bahamas. Those photos weren't on the flash drive in my hand. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady. 20 years is a long time to be married, long enough to really know someone, their habits, their quirks, what they're like when they think no one's watching. Polite smiles, glasses being set down, people settling in for what they assumed would be a sentimental speech. For example, I've learned that Roger is very good at preparation, methodical, detail-oriented. These are qualities that make him excellent at his job. I paused, looked directly at him, and excellent at drugging his wife. The room went silent, completely silent. The kind of silence that has weight, that presses down on your chest. Roger's face drained of color. "Elaine, what are you—" "I'm getting to it, honey. Don't interrupt." I turned to our guests, saw shock beginning to register on faces. "You see, for the past 8 months, Roger has been crushing sleeping pills into my nightly tea. Ambien at first, then something stronger. Why would he do this? Well, that's where it gets interesting." I clicked the remote in my hand. The projection screen flickered to life. The footage was crystal clear. Our bedroom, shot from the angle of the smoke detector camera Marcus had installed. Date and timestamp in the corner. Roger, in his pajamas, reaching into his pocket to pull out a pill bottle. Crushing tablets between 2 spoons. Stirring the powder into the mug of tea sitting on his nightstand. Someone gasped. Chairs scraped as people turned to stare at Roger, whose face had gone from pale to red. "This is insane," he sputtered. "She's having some kind of breakdown." "I'm not finished." My voice cut through his protest like a blade. "That's from 2 weeks ago. But here's one from 3 weeks ago. And here's one from a month ago." I clicked through the footage. Different nights, same routine. The evidence was undeniable, repetitive, damning. Our guests stared at the screen in horror, then at Roger, then back at me in my red dress. Why would my loving husband do this? I continued, calm despite the adrenaline singing in my veins. Let me show you. New footage. Roger's office. The camera behind his desk. Him sitting at his laptop, the glow illuminating his face as he navigated to our bank accounts, clicking through screens, initiating transfers. $200,000 stolen over the course of a year, funneled into an account in his name alone. That money was my inheritance from my mother, I said quietly. She was a nurse at Lenox Hill Hospital for 40 years. Every penny she saved went to me when she died 6 months ago, and Roger decided it should go to him instead. The silence had transformed, no longer shocked. Now it was angry, horrified. I could see people's faces changing, especially the women, the recognition of betrayal hitting them in ways that transcended my specific story. Roger stood up abruptly, his chair falling backward. This is fabricated. She's manipulated this footage somehow. She's trying to frame me because she's having an affair and wants out of the marriage. Sit down, Roger. My voice was ice. He actually flinched. I'm not done yet. Gloria appeared beside me, handing me a folder. I opened it, pulled out documents. These are bank records showing the transfers. These are the prescription bottles with my name on them that I never ordered. These are text messages between Roger and an online pharmacy discussing dosages and shipping times. I held them up, let everyone see. And these are divorce papers filed this morning, along with criminal charges for fraud and assault. Because drugging someone without their knowledge or consent is assault, in case you were wondering. Roger's lawyer friend, Michael, was on his feet. You can't just, this is a private matter. Nothing about this is private anymore, I said calmly. Not when he did it to someone else before me. That got reactions. Murmurs spreading through the room like wildfire. Roger's first wife, Patricia. He never told me about her, but I found her. She filed a restraining order 15 years ago for similar behavior, manipulation, financial abuse, theft. No criminal charges because she was too afraid. I'm not afraid. I turned to look at Roger directly. He was standing there, his face a mask of rage and panic, every calculation running behind his eyes. Looking for the play, the angle, the way to spin this. There wasn't one. You said I sleep too much, Roger. Remember? That's what you told me when I questioned the pills. You said it like it was my fault, like I was the problem. I smiled, and it was all teeth. Well, I'm wide awake now, and so is everyone else. Cynthia stood up from her table near the bar, started clapping, slow at first, then building. Other women joined her, then more guests, until the entire room was applauding, standing, while Roger stood there paralyzed. His business partner, David, walked over to him. You need to leave. Now. We'll discuss your termination tomorrow. David, come on. Leave, before I call the police myself. Marcus appeared in the doorway, flanked by 2 security guards I'd hired. Mr. Morrison, it's time to go. Roger looked around the room, at faces that had been friendly an hour ago and were now cold with contempt. His eyes landed on me last, and I saw it, hatred, pure and undiluted. You'll regret this, he said quietly. I'll destroy you. You already tried, I replied. You failed. He left. Escorted out by security, his shoulders hunched, everything he'd built crumbling behind him. The silence he left was different from before, charged with solidarity, with recognition, with the shared understanding that something profound had just happened. I stood at the front of the room, still holding the folder of evidence, watching my guests process what they'd witnessed. Then someone spoke up. Karen, one of my longtime clients. Thank you for trusting us with this, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for being brave enough to stand up. Others echoed her, approaching me one by one, hugging me, sharing their own stories of men who'd manipulated them, gaslighted them, made them doubt their own sanity. The party transformed into something else entirely. A wake for my marriage, yes, but also a gathering of witnesses, of survivors, of people who understood. Gloria joined me near the windows, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. "You did it. That was perfect." "It's not over," I said. "He'll fight this." "Let him. We have everything we need. The footage, the financial records, Patricia's testimony. She's agreed to make a statement. Roger's finished, Elaine. Professionally, socially, legally. You destroyed him without throwing a single punch." I thought about that. About Roger sitting somewhere alone right now, his con exposed, his reputation in tatters. About how he'd stolen from me, drugged me, made me question my own mind for months. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction exactly. Not joy. Just a quiet, cold certainty that justice had been served. "What happens now?" Cynthia asked, appearing with 3 glasses of champagne. "Now?" I took a glass, looked at these women who'd stood by me. "Now we start the hard part." The aftermath was swift and brutal. For Roger, not for me. His firm terminated him immediately, citing moral turpitude and violation of fiduciary trust. Turned out several of his colleagues had wondered about irregularities in client accounts, and my revelation gave them courage to investigate. They found more missing money, more manipulation. Roger hadn't just stolen from me. I was one of several victims. The criminal charges moved forward. Patricia agreed to testify about her experience. And 2 other women came forward with similar stories of Roger's financial abuse. The prosecutor called it a pattern of behavior, evidence of a systematic con artist who targeted women with inheritances or family wealth. I got my money back. All of it, plus damages. Roger's hidden account was frozen. The funds returned to me and his other victims. He'd have to sell his condo in Miami, his vintage car collection, everything he'd bought with stolen money. But the legal victory wasn't the real win. The real win was watching his social circle disintegrate. Former friends crossed the street to avoid him. His club membership was revoked. The charity boards he'd sat on asked for his resignation. In New York's social ecosystem, reputation is currency, and Rogers was worthless. He tried to fight back, of course, hired an expensive lawyer, claimed I'd fabricated evidence, insisted he was being set up by a vindictive ex-wife. But the footage was time-stamped and verified by digital forensics experts. The financial records were undeniable. Patricia and the other women were credible witnesses. His lawyer eventually advised him to take a plea deal. 5 years probation, full restitution, mandatory therapy, and he could never work in finance again. He took it. What choice did he have? I didn't attend the hearing, didn't need to see his face as he accepted the deal. My closure came from elsewhere, from reclaiming my life, my assets, my sense of self that he'd tried so hard to erode. 3 months after the anniversary party, I put our apartment on the market. I couldn't live there anymore, in that space where he'd drugged me, stolen from me, pretended to love me while destroying me from within. The place sold in 2 weeks. Central Park views are always in demand. I bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, in Park Slope, with a garden and exposed brick and enough room for a home office. My design firm was thriving. Turned out the publicity from Roger's downfall had brought me new clients, people who admired how I'd handled the situation. I was busier than ever, creating beautiful spaces for people while rebuilding my own. Cynthia helped me move in, along with a crew of our mutual friends. We drank wine on the stoop that first night, watching the neighborhood kids play in the street, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a year: peace. "You did it," Cynthia said, raising her glass. "You took your life back." "We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have gotten through this without you." "That's what friends are for. Speaking of which, when are you going to start dating again?" I laughed. "Never. Men are canceled. I'm becoming a crazy cat lady." "You don't even like cats." "I'll learn." But the truth was, I wasn't ready. Maybe wouldn't be ready for a long time. Roger had damaged something fundamental in me, my ability to trust, to believe in love, To think someone could want me for reasons beyond my bank account. That kind of wound takes time to heal, if it ever does. I started therapy, twice a week with a psychologist who specialized in domestic abuse and financial crime. Yes, what Roger did counted as domestic abuse, even though he never hit me. Drugging someone, gaslighting them, stealing from them, that's abuse. Recognizing it was part of my healing. The therapy sessions were difficult at first. I'd sit in Dr. Reeves's office, surrounded by soft lighting and comfortable furniture designed to make people feel safe, and I'd struggle to articulate the depth of Roger's betrayal. How do you explain to someone that the man you loved for 20 years was essentially a stranger? That every tender moment, every whispered "I love you," every anniversary gift might have been calculated manipulation rather than genuine affection. Dr. Reeves helped me understand something crucial. I wasn't stupid for loving Roger. I wasn't weak for not seeing through him sooner. Narcissists and con artists are experts at manipulation. They're charming, convincing, and they know how to exploit empathy and trust. Roger had chosen me specifically because I was kind, successful, and conflict avoidant. The perfect mark. You're not his victim, Dr. Reeves said during one session. You're his survivor. There's a difference. I tried to believe her. Some days I did. Some days I wore that identity, survivor, like armor. Other days I felt like nothing more than a fool who'd wasted 20 years on a lie. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Patricia, Roger's first wife, at a coffee shop in the village. We'd exchanged emails during the trial, but had never met in person. She was 52, elegant, with gray-streaked hair and the kind eyes of someone who'd been through hell and come out intact. Elaine. She stood up, embraced me like we were old friends. In a way, we were, bonded by shared trauma. I'm so glad I ran into you. I've wanted to thank you properly. Thank me for having the courage I didn't have 15 years ago. When you exposed Roger, when you made his crimes public, you gave me something I'd lost, validation. All these years, I thought maybe I was crazy, maybe I'd misremembered, maybe he really had been trying to help me and I'd just been paranoid. Seeing your evidence, hearing other women's stories, it finally confirmed that I wasn't wrong. He did abuse me. I wasn't imagining it. We talked for 2 hours, shared our experiences, our healing journeys, our lingering fears. Patricia had rebuilt her life successfully, remarried to a good man, had a career she loved, found peace. She was proof that recovery was possible. The hardest part, she said, stirring her latte, was forgiving myself for not seeing through him sooner. For wasting years on someone who never loved me. How did you get past that? By realizing that love isn't supposed to be a test you can fail. Real love doesn't require you to be constantly vigilant, always questioning, forever proving yourself. Real love feels safe. When it doesn't feel safe, that's not love. That's something else wearing love's mask. I thought about that a lot in the following weeks, about how Roger had worn love's mask so convincingly, about how I'd mistaken control for care, possession for devotion, about how easy it is to confuse someone monitoring you with someone protecting you. 1 year after the anniversary party, I threw a different kind of celebration. Just me, Cynthia, Patricia, and a few other friends who'd supported me through the divorce. We met at the River Cafe again. I'd asked them to let me book the same space, needed to reclaim it from the memory of that night. We toasted to survival, to female friendship, to second chances and fresh starts. And as I looked around at these women who'd stood by me, who'd believed me when I barely believed myself, I felt something unexpected. Gratitude. Not for what Roger had done, never that, but for what I'd discovered in myself through surviving it. Strength I didn't know I possessed. Courage that emerged when I needed it most. The ability to trust again, slowly, carefully, starting with trusting myself. My design business was flourishing. I'd hired 2 assistants, taken on bigger projects, even taught a workshop on interior design at Parsons. My brownstone had become a sanctuary, filled with things I chose, spaces I created, a life that was entirely mine. Roger, from what I heard, was living in New Jersey with his brother, working as a low-level accountant, his license to practice financial consulting permanently revoked. He'd lost everything, his reputation, his wealth, his freedom to operate. Sometimes I'd wonder if he ever thought about what he'd done, if he felt remorse or just anger at being caught. Then I'd remember. It didn't matter. His internal world was no longer my concern. I'd wasted enough time trying to understand him, to explain away his cruelty, to make excuses for the inexcusable. He was someone else's problem now, his own primarily. I started dating, eventually. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and dinners with men I met through friends or work. I was upfront about my past, about the baggage I carried. Most disappeared after I explained about Roger. A few stayed, patient and kind, understanding that trust would take time. One of them, David, not Roger's former business partner, different David, asked me during our fourth date why I'd stayed with Roger for so long. Because I loved him, I said simply. And love makes you believe in things that aren't real. How do you love anyone after that? David asked, genuinely curious. How do you trust again? Very carefully, I replied. And only after I learned to trust myself first. I never saw Roger again. Heard he'd tried to contact me a few times in the early months after the divorce. Emails that bounced off the block I'd put in place, letters that Gloria returned unopened. He wanted to explain, apparently, to apologize, to tell his side of the story. I didn't care about his side. His side didn't matter. What mattered was that I'd survived, rebuilt, and refused to let his cruelty define the rest of my life. 2 years after everything imploded, I was featured in Architectural Digest for a brownstone renovation I'd completed in Cobble Hill. The article mentioned my story, briefly, how I'd overcome personal adversity to build a successful design firm. Roger wasn't named, but people who knew could read between the lines. My phone rang after the article published, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Elaine Morrison? A woman's voice, young, uncertain. Yes? My name is Sophie. I'm engaged to Roger Morrison. He said you were his ex-wife. I found your number through your business website. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask, is he dangerous? My blood went cold. What did he do? Nothing yet, but I've been so tired lately, and I found pills in his nightstand and my bank account. Some money is missing. He says I'm imagining things, that I'm stressed from wedding planning, but I just... Her voice broke. I needed to know if I was crazy. I closed my eyes. Here we go again. Roger had found a new mark, a new woman to exploit. And she was reaching out, this Sophie, looking for validation the same way Patricia had needed it from me. You're not crazy, I said firmly. And yes, he's dangerous. But Sophie, you need to listen carefully. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. We talked for an hour. I gave her Gloria's number, Marcus's contact information, told her how to document everything, how to protect herself financially and physically. By the end of the call, Sophie was crying with relief, not because her fiancé was a con artist, but because she wasn't losing her mind. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for calling before it was too late, I replied. Now get out. Today. Don't wait. Don't give him a chance to explain. Just leave and don't look back. She did. I got an email from her a week later. She'd broken off the engagement, moved back in with her parents, filed a police report. Roger's probation officer was notified that he'd attempted the same scheme again. His probation was revoked. He went to jail for 18 months. I didn't feel triumphant about it. Didn't celebrate. Just felt a weary sadness that Roger was still out there, still trying, still thinking he could get away with destroying women for profit. At least this time, he hadn't succeeded. This time, Sophie had escaped before he could do real damage. Clara's Wisdom segment. Let me pause the story here and speak to you directly about something I learned through this nightmare. What Roger did to me has a name: coercive control. It's a pattern of behavior designed to make you dependent while stripping away your autonomy, your resources, and your sense of reality. The drugging was just one tactic. The gaslighting, making me doubt my perceptions, was another. The financial abuse, isolating me emotionally while seeming attentive, gradually eroding my confidence until I couldn't trust my own judgment. If you're reading this and something resonates, if you felt that creeping doubt about your own sanity, if someone in your life constantly tells you you're wrong about what you experienced, listen carefully. You are not crazy. Abusers rely on their targets doubting themselves. They weaponize kindness, affection, and concern to mass control. Here are concrete signs to watch for: unexplained exhaustion that doctors can't diagnose, missing money with reasonable explanations that don't quite add up, feeling like you're walking on eggshells in your own home, being told you're too sensitive, too emotional, imagining things. Isolation from friends and family disguised as quality time together. Your partner monitoring your activities while claiming it's care. If you recognize these patterns, document everything. Take photos, save emails, record conversations if it's legal in your state. Tell someone you trust, a friend, a therapist, a lawyer. Create an exit plan before you need it, and know that leaving is the most dangerous time. Get help. Contact domestic violence resources. You don't have to do this alone. The most important thing I learned: trust yourself. Your instincts are trying to protect you. When something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Now, 3 years after that anniversary party, I'm 48 years old. My hair has more silver in it, and I don't bother covering it up. My brownstone is filled with plants and art and comfortable furniture that's mine alone. My business is thriving. I have friends who show up, who listen, who believe me. I'm dating someone, that David I mentioned earlier. He's patient, kind, and utterly transparent. Shows me his phone without being asked. Includes me in financial decisions even though we don't share accounts. Checks in without checking up on me. It's still hard sometimes, trusting him. Hard not to look for the con, the manipulation, the moment when the mask will slip. But I'm learning. Learning that healthy love is boring in the best way. No drama, no chaos, no constant testing. Just someone who shows up consistently, who means what they say, who treats me with respect even when we disagree. Roger taught me what love isn't. David is teaching me what it could be. I still think about that night at the River Cafe sometimes. How I stood in that red dress, armed with evidence and righteous fury, and took my life back in front of 50 witnesses. It was terrifying and empowering and necessary. I don't regret it for a second. But I also think about the smaller victories. The first night I slept in my brownstone without checking the locks 5 times. The day I realized I'd gone a full week without wondering if Roger would try to contact me. The moment when David made me tea and I drank it without hesitation, trusting that it was just tea. Those victories matter more than the public takedown. They're the proof that I'm healing, that Roger didn't break something in me that can't be repaired. He scarred me, yes. Changed me, absolutely. But destroyed me? No. I'm still here, still standing, still building a life that's mine. So here's my question for you. Wherever you are, whatever time you're reading this, have you ever had to reclaim something stolen from you? Not just money or possessions, but your sense of self, your ability to trust, your belief in your own perception of reality? If you have, know that you're not alone. Know that survival is possible. Know that the life waiting on the other side of betrayal can be richer, deeper, more authentic than anything you had before. If you haven't, if you're blessed enough to have avoided this particular kind of pain, then do something for me. Believe the people in your life who tell you they're being abused. Don't ask why they don't just leave. Don't question their story or require proof before offering support. Just believe them. That simple act of faith can be the difference between someone staying trapped and someone finding the courage to escape. And if you're in it right now, if you're reading this while your hands shake and your mind races and you wonder if you're crazy, you're not. You're trapped in someone else's carefully constructed reality. But traps have exits. You can find yours. Start documenting today. Reach out tomorrow. Make your plan. Take your power back. It won't be easy. God knows it wasn't easy for me. But you know what's harder? Staying. Accepting. Living the rest of your life wondering who you might have been if you'd chosen yourself. I chose myself. In that red dress, with that flash drive, in front of those witnesses, I chose myself. And I've been choosing myself every day since. You can too. So tell me, where are you listening from? What city, what time zone, what corner of the world? Drop a comment and let me know. If this story resonated with you, if you know someone who needs to hear it, hit that like button. Share it. Subscribe for more stories like this, because trust me, I have more to tell. And if you want to know what happened next, check out the 2 videos I'm going to suggest at the end. One's about Patricia's story, how she rebuilt after Roger. The other's about Sophie, and how she escaped before he could destroy her the way he tried to destroy me. Until next time, take care of your heart, protect your peace, trust yourself. And remember, you are not the crazy one. You never were. This is Elaine, signing off.